Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome the throngs of people to the Portsmouth School Board meeting for May 12th, 2010. If I could ask the superintendent to please take the roll call.
Yes. Ann Mayer?
Here.
Carol Chelman?
Here.
Kent LePage? Dexter Lake?
Here.
Rebecca Remerson?
Here.
Ann Walker?
Here.
Mitch Schulman?
Here.
Tom Martin?
Here.
Leslie Stevens?
Here.
Lisa Sweet?
Here.
Linda Brulette?
Here.
Philip Point?
Here.
If you'll join me for a moment of silence and then in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from April 13th regular school board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion, edits, changes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. There's nobody signed up for public commentary tonight, but I have been notified by the superintendent that one of the things, they left something out, that we actually have a short presentation this evening from the Dundero teachers about the 5th grade environmental camp. So this would be the place that would normally go. So why don't we just move right into that?
Fabulous. Thank you.
Great.
School, not camp. Sorry, I meant to say environmental school, not environmental camp.
Thank you for the correction. We appreciate that. We do work hard to make sure the kids understand that,
But
too.
my daughter's been there. And
Well, we came this evening to thank all of you for your support. We know that we feel honored and valued as Portsmouth educators to have a board like you that really values educating the whole child and not just the academic child. So we really appreciate that. We thought we would give you a little bit of history of where environmental school, how it all started, and then move on to tell you about the program we enjoyed a couple of weeks ago. About 15 years ago, the teachers at Dundero decided that we should go to an environmental school experience. They started at a school in Maine and participated there for about 5 years. The staff and the program itself diminished a little bit, so they decided, we need to find someplace different to go. They went to Oregon State Park, and we enjoyed 5 years there with a day program, not an overnight program. And then we felt as teachers that it would be better for us to have an overnight program where the kids could enjoy extended periods of time of learning and also have the opportunity for some social and emotional growth as well, especially since we're transitioning from 5th grade onto 6th grade. And we thought this was a great opportunity for them to solidify those friendships and enjoy each other all day. So we went to Ferry Beach Ecology School for a year and enjoyed that greatly. And then we had the opportunity to join Little Harbor School over at Camp Calumet in Ossipee, New Hampshire. After we learned there for 3 years, we decided that it was best for our students to go back to Ferry Beach due to some needs that we had in our population. And so we went to Ferry Beach this year instead of going back to Camp Calumet. And we just enjoyed a wonderful 4 days and 3 nights there right before April vacation.
So my name is Josh Evans. I'm one of the 5th grade teachers. Just to give you a little bit of history about Ferry Beach Ecology School and why we picked it. We spent a lot of time researching and evaluating some of the different environmental school programs to try to find the one that would be have the best cost benefit, that would be reasonably priced, but that would offer a high quality science education for our students. Because it's such a unique experience, we wanted to give them that opportunity. Ferry Beach is located in Saco, Maine, and their campus is just a few steps from the ocean. And so what it provides that we really appreciated was that within a very small range of space, there are a number of different ecological systems. They could go to the beach, to the salt marsh, to the forest, to the tide pools, and had a chance to experience science in a way that it's hard to duplicate in the classroom. They could see the interconnectedness of the different ecosystems, and they could see change over time. And so the campus and the program that was offered there was really appealing to us. As well, the teachers that work there, they call them naturalists. We found them to be incredibly professional. We found them to be really skilled as teachers. They had a real great knowledge of the content, and they were experts in their field. Many of them had studied environmental education or biology or those types of subjects in their graduate and undergraduate work. And so when we, as teachers, were out with the students on the field and we were watching them learn with these other people, it was a real joy for us, because these students that we've built relationships with and that we've seen them grow, to then see them thrive in the care of other people who can teach them in another way and with a different level of expertise, it was really incredible for us to see that. And Liz is going to talk to you a little bit about what they taught them.
My name is Liz Lichtenberg. I'm also a fifth grade teacher at Dondero School. The educational value of environmental school is tremendous. As you already know, they've started testing in science for the kneecaps in grades 4, 8, and 11, so we need to prepare our students for those tests. The importance of reaching and teaching all of these standards is key. We want to make sure all of our students are proficient or proficient with distinction. In order to do this and meet all of these standards, we need to find alternative ways to be doing this just beyond being in the classroom. You have on the blue sheet on the back side are all of our state school power standards, district power standards. And then in an extensive packet, I only made one copy because it is a lot of paper. It says all of the state standards that are met through this program, which is a number of them. There are 6 pages of standards that they touch on in this program. This program allows for a hands-on, interactive, and intensive and fun way to meet the many expectations that we have. Brain research has shown that people learn best when they're engaged and emotionally stable. Learning is also more likely to transfer from short-term to long-term memory when we teach using their multiple intelligences, get them out there, touch things, feel things. We also find that if we encourage social interaction and introduce more repetition and they're appropriately challenged, then we are just finding that they transfer to long-term memory. These are all strategies that are utilized daily at environmental school. The students are engaged in learning for 9 hours a day when they go to ecology school. This adds up to at least 28 hours of learning that they have in these 4 short days. And these learning experiences range from lab time to night hikes to tide pooling to watching ecology-related skits to firsthand experience with composting during meal times. If we want our students to learn, we need them to be engaged. Sitting in a classroom to learn about the world is only one way that we can teach our students. But getting out into the world and seeing and witnessing ecology in action, touching animals and living with composting, that's learning. At Dondero, we have brought home over 15 years of bringing home students talking about that trash pile in the middle of the ocean, or the pit that they found where they could witness all the layers of the earth that our world has been through in the last million years. We've also come home them telling us about isopods that they witnessed go through the entire life cycle of birth, death, life, and it's amazing. And the friendships that they've made and strengthened, which Jen will talk about a little more. Thank you.
One thing I think we do really well at Dondero is not only teach our kids our academic subjects, but also we take some time to teach them social and emotional skills. And we teach them throughout their years that they're there for K to 5, but then when they go off to environmental school, something that we find fascinating is that they take the time for each other and support each other in their emotional needs and their social needs. Throughout the day, they have many opportunities to take care of one another. At night, when they're sleeping over together, some kids might have homesickness issues or not understand how to take a shower by themselves without parent support, things like that. And they most often go to each other rather than coming to teachers. So they're using those strong relationships that they already have and they go to each other for support. Also, at night, they are staying in a dorm room with other students from their grade level that we work with parents to make sure those are good fits. You wouldn't believe it, but a lot of our students have never had the opportunity of sleeping over at a friend's house. So this is a wonderful way to build a common ground for all students so that they can go on to 6th grade with shared experiences and shared knowledge. Also, at meal times, they are served family style, and the students, they set their tables and they clean their tables, and they pass the food around the table, using their polite manners, asking for more, encouraging each other to stay healthy by being hydrated, drink water first and then juice. They also encourage each other to make sure that they eat a variety of foods and not just the pasta. Make sure you eat your salad and your fruit. And it's really kind of neat for us to see them encourage those kinds of healthy eating habits and emotional habits independently. We didn't have to step in a whole lot, which was really nice for us to see. And then out on the science lessons, we are so proud of our kids because they take the social skills that they've gained through their family experiences and through their experiences at Dondero, and they use them in the field. Hey, watch out, don't trip over that. Hey, don't forget your backpack because you're going to need your sunscreen later. Don't forget your raincoat, it might rain. I heard on the weather report this morning. They really look out for each other and they make sure that everyone is staying emotionally healthy, but then also they're talking, they're learning about each other while they're hiking through the field. They're sharing common interests that they don't have that much time to do at school, really, right? They have recess and lunch, but that's about it. Other times we're pretty much focused on academics. So it's so nice that they're able to take what they know about each other, grow that, and form more solid relationships. And one of the things I think I value most about having the overnight experience is that kids come away from this saying, wow, I have so many more friends now. And I know that I have so many more people that I can rely on next year in 6th grade. I'm not so scared about that anymore. So we really value the fact that they're able to grow in all of those ways. Thank you.
So we wanted to come here tonight to say thank you. First of all, thank you for just giving us an opportunity to tell you a little bit about this opportunity for the kids at Dondero, but thank you also for your support. It's certainly a big undertaking, and we're supported through the school district, who gives us some money to help us do that. We're supported through the Dondero PTA, who does fundraising, and we're supported through the families who contribute as well. And through all of that work and through what you all have done, we're able to provide a really incredible opportunity that I can speak for all three of us that we value a lot and feel is a real big part of the science and the overall educational experience of students at Dondero. So we just thank you because we've been able to provide that to every student at our school, regardless of their economic situation and regardless of a lot of different situations, to put them in this place to really accomplish a lot as a team and as individuals. So thank you.
Do you have something else you want to say? Oh, so I appreciate you thanking us, but actually it's we who should thank you even more because I don't feel like we do much. You guys really work hard and do a lot. So I appreciate that and thank you very much. So before you leave, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask?
No, I guess the one question was just outdoor experiences to me are really valuable to kids, and being able to kinetically and visually see a lot of different things brings a lot of other rudimentary things in classrooms to life. Have you found ways to try to bring some of these outdoor experiences to everyday classroom life? Obviously you can't do a lot, but it just seems like this is such a valuable experience that there might be things to do with gardens or other things that you can do in and around school that I'm not aware of.
I think we both have something to say, probably.
Go ahead.
It's actually kind of funny that you ask about that because just recently a group of our boys have asked, I know this isn't necessarily the classroom, but it's the lunchroom. They've actually asked for us to see if we can take a look at how the lunchroom runs so they can sit with their peer groups that the teachers have chosen instead of, we chose their groups at environmental school, instead of their natural friends They're also asking if we can change how they're served, because they want to have more opportunities to take on that leadership role and use their manners. It's kind of funny to hear them ask for that. But, so they really want to carry that part of it over back into school, which is nice that they're doing that independently. But then also, we've tried over the years to do something like what you're suggesting, the garden. And personally, I find if we had more money, more time, we could do some of those things. So we start small garden projects. I wish it could become bigger, but we start them. And we teach them a lot of the fundamental skills that they need to have before they go into environmental school. And because they have that knowledge, they're then able to have a deeper understanding when they're in the field. And right now we're working more on ecosystems and how things are connected in our own Dondero backyard.
Great.
I was just going to say that for me, it just the reminder of going to an experience like we had in Scene, just like you're talking about, the kinesthetic, the hands-on piece, the inquiry base. It's a good reminder for me as I plan out units of study or plan lessons on a day-to-day basis to keep all those different parts in mind and to try to bring a few of those different things in, because I agree. I think that it connects with different students in different ways, and so as teachers, that's always our goal, is to try to find as many ways as we can connect with students so that they get it, and keep doing that until they do get it.
Right, sure. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time coming tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, the superintendent's report. Oh, sorry. Yes?
I don't know how, the superintendent's report is usually not that long, but would it be possible to move item 7D, the district reports, up? Because I know that there are several exciting events going on in the elementary schools that maybe if we move these guys up, it might help them out a little bit.
Anybody have an issue with that? Okey doke.
It was me.
Okay. District reports.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr.
Shea.
Shea.
Take 'em.
Thank you. Thanks for having us so quickly. It's nice. And having us in tonight in general. I'm George Shea, principal of New Franklin School. Just to give you some updates on what's going on, business is really booming at New Franklin as we strive to make sort of those year-long team and student goals in that march towards June. Sort of now's the go time where we sort of look at all those and try and actualize everything we've aspired to. So it's very busy. Just a couple highlights. We're sort of doing an extreme green makeover to the front of our building. And as start of that process, we just received a Garden Club grant towards that effort. A couple weeks ago, we just had our third and final family math night of the year, New Franklin Builds, which was a family math night with measurement in mind, where we had about 60 families, young engineers, all coming in and doing all sorts of measuring, weighing. We did it in conjunction with Title I, and Dex Robley from the high school was building birdhouses with our kids. It was an amazing event with a lot of hammering, lots of hammering, really, really loud hammering. As you may have noticed, as you may have heard, we just had our triannual Title I on-site for all the whole district with Mary Ellen Arrigo from the state, and the elementary principals met with her, and she spent 2 days in our buildings looking at our programs and interviewing our parents, our teachers, and seeing some of the work at work. And she had tremendous reviews for our programs, which was really nice to hear. We feel very good about our results and the work that's going on, but every once in a while it's nice to hear it from someone that's an outside higher up. So it was just nice to hear. And see, as we speak tonight, the New Franklin kids, the grade 3 through 5 course, are stretching their vocal cords at the All-City concert tonight. So it's another goings on. So we're here to update also on PLC implementation, how that's going. Right now at New Franklin, our PLC teams are in their 4th or 5th intervention cycle. They're pretty much finishing up doing their intervention cycles on the mathematics power standards. So they're closing those out. What I've put in your packet is just a quick example from a grade 2 team. And this just shows the pre-assessment, post-assessment. This is good old double-digit addition. And it's a power standard as well as a state GLE. And this is a fairly short intervention cycle. And really, if you just look along the top, those are the items. Along the left axis, the y-axis, I believe, would be the individual student outcomes. And at the bottom, the percentages for each question, the total proficiencies on the right. And this is a sort of architecture we use for almost all of our teams, pretty much Excel. And we're looking to take this work and have experimented with putting it into Performance Tracker and other tools, Access, to give us something, to give us pages that speak to each other a little bit more than the Excel sheets do. And this was, as you can see, a fairly quick cycle. And on the first outcome, 75% of the kids were proficient. They had a 1-week cycle of intervention, set a SMART goal of 85% proficiency, and they ended up at 87.5. And this is just one specimen. There are lots of these sheets and lots of examples of these. It's important for us not just to look at that overall proficiency outcome. There's a student side of learning to the PLC work and looking at the data and seeing where we can bring students. But it's also reflective about instruction and identifying gaps in instruction. So when we do a pre-assessment, as is identified on this first page, you can look at items like 6, 7, and 10 that I've highlighted at the bottom with fairly low scores. That may reflect the difficulty of the item as well, but it also points to an area where we really need to focus our instruction, not just in an intervention sake, but it seems like all students seem to have struggled in that area. So that point's very important, and also as we go through, after we go through an intervention cycle, to look at all these things, and the reflection piece is key. We have a reflection protocol that we go through at the end of each one, where we go back and look at what was learned, what did we do right, what did we do wrong, how do we move, where were we successful in moving kids, what can we do about our tier 1, our initial instruction to improve next time around, and it builds upon itself each year. So again, this is just one little grade 2 cycle. Let's see, our April 8th start was spent looking at analyzing the developmental reading assessment, the DRA outcomes, and in a similar way, planning steps to help students reach their year-end goals from April to mid-June, and deploying what resources and methods we need to do to get there. And our next steps as a building in our PLC work is teams are in the process of creating their assessments for our year-long SMART goals, almost all of which are around mathematical reasoning and improving students' number sense and their ability to express what they're thinking around the mathematical problem. It's one thing for kids to be able to execute an algorithm. It's another thing for them to be able to apply their knowledge to multiple situations, to be able to articulate their reasoning, and to explain what's going on in their mind, that sort of metacognitive piece. So that's been a big building-wide goal of ours, and most teams are assessing that at the end of this month. After that, we're doing something with most teams we're calling it the roundup, which is areas in the PLC cycles that were weak all year. We're going back and taking all of them, or those areas that had a significant amount of intervention, or maybe students didn't get as high as we want, compiling them all and doing sort of one massive crash course for about 3 weeks, trying to pick up those pieces of things that we maybe didn't feel we hit the outcome that we wanted. So that's our PLC work. Coming up at New Franklin on May 14th, this Friday, we have Wordplay Day, which is New Franklin's sort of answer to the spelling bee with age-appropriate levels and challenges. You'll see things like the word wizards going up against the letter lords in different lexiconographic competition. On May 27th, will be our Gary the Clown performance after his residency, as well as our Spring Student Showcase, which is an exhibition of student work, sort of a culminating piece at the end of the year where everyone can come in and see the stuff. So much of our work is about process and about all that we do, but once in a while it's nice to throw all the stuff out and invite everybody in to see it. So I invite any of you to come on over and attend any of these events. And thanks for your time.
Great.
Questions, or do you want to wait till the end? Ms. Walker. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't recognize
Take
you.
over.
I just wanted to comment, I love the idea of your crash course. I think it's a great way to end the year, because there were so many things along the way that they're okay and they're moving along, but they're not quite what you'd like them to be. So to kind of put them all together, I think that sounds great.
Yeah, it's going to be a potpourri of all our
I
Achilles
love it.
heels. So-
I have
Anything
one
else?
quick question.
Sure.
So do all the elementary schools do the same?
I think this is just one reporting tool. So we've created
Okay.
a general Excel template with all the formulas built in that the teams can use. Some teams don't use the exact template.
So on this sheet, you have 48, or it's 47, 48 students. So in the pre-test and the post-test, as you look at these, is student number 5 on the pre-test the same student number 5 on the post-test?
I believe so.
Okay.
I shouldn't have blacked it out as well as I did, and I unfortunately blacked out my copy as well. But I did do a quick scan of that as I was setting this up and taking this from the team. It should be the same student, so you should be able to trend looking at those
because you can
kids.
see that. And this is a week long pre and post test.
Yep, 4 days. 4 days of we do intervention block for 4 days, and during that time, it's not just intervention students. We have tiers of instruction that go on. So there's an enrichment course that goes on at that time too.
And so the point is, and this is really heartening, is you, and I think people in the community need to understand this as you look at the data, because this is all data-driven decision making, that you actually know where each child stands,
Yep.
how they're doing individually.
Our student literacy has just grown immensely in the past few years. Now we're sort of, the struggles now are always in the what do we do about it phase of everything. I feel like we've really come to know what kids know and don't know, and we've gotten really facile about gleaning that information. And this is what we call in New Franklin, this is the what year. We've been doing a lot of, what's effective practice, what moves students from 75.5 to 87.5 in 4 days. And sometimes just the assessment itself helps make things more focal. It really can, the data tells a story and helps us identify and target specific gaps in the learning versus before when it may have been a much broader stroke. And I think just that lensing that happens is really key to our practice. So,
Great. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Jill.
Good evening. Nice to see you all tonight. A few things going on at Dondero School, and you are absolutely right, Lisa. It's a very busy week at Dondero. We're celebrating Smart Screens Week, where our PTA has events every night planned for families to come in to help them stay away from the TV or the computer screen or the handheld device and actually have some fun together. Tonight we have our ice cream social, and I truly appreciate our 5th grade teachers coming here tonight to speak to you about environmental school, because their students are back at Dondero serving ice cream where we all were before we came over here. So also this week is Spirit Week. Some of us looked a little different earlier today with rainbow wigs or punk hair, because today was Crazy Hair and Rock Star Day. Tomorrow we have our annual field day, and we'll be wearing our school spirit wear and colors. And if you're want to have some fun, come on over. Love to have you play some games with us in the morning. But we're really here tonight to talk about our PLC implementation and to keep you up to date on what's going on in our schools. So I have handed you a 3-page chart. First was just the overview on the first page. Second page has a graph, and it documents the, no? Looks like this.
Some have it?
Same.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We're not as organized as you are.
Yeah. I'm glad you have them now. So this second page is a chart that documents our progress using the DRA in kindergarten through second grade this year. As you may recall, we created a school-wide SMART goal that 80% of our students would be reading on grade level according to the DRA assessment at the end of the school year. We've spent considerable time targeting our kindergarten first and second grade students this year. And you'll notice on the chart, on the left-hand column, there are the DRA levels that start with level A at the bottom and go up to level 28 at the top. Those are levels that students are expected to be at from kindergarten through the end of second grade. The diagonal colored lines indicate kindergarten, first, and second grades' expected progress for the year. Please note that the kindergarten is not assessed until January because we don't take for granted that students come into school with all the prerequisite reading skills. The I bars, they're blue and they look like the letter I, they represent 100% of the students at that grade level, and the number next to that indicates the percentage of students who scored at or above the benchmark for that point in time. So if we take a look at kindergarten, you will notice that in January, 85% of the students scored at or above the benchmark level 1. Then when we assess them again in March, 95% of the students met the benchmark or exceeded the benchmark at a level 2. It's important to note that as those grade level markings proceed across the page, the content of the assessment changes and gets much more difficult. And so to maintain statistics like that is really impressive. You'll notice in first grade they're not quite as impressive, but you'll see that our kids are continuing to make progress. At the start of first grade, 72% of the students met a level 4 benchmark, which is really some pretty basic reading skills. As the year progresses, it gets much more complex. In January, 67% of the students met or exceeded the level 10 benchmark. And in March, 62% of the students met or exceeded the level 14 benchmark. So although the numbers have decreased, the students are continuing to progress towards their end of the year goal. In second grade, we started with only 44% of the students reading at the beginning of the year benchmark of level 18. After intensive intervention, we reached a 79% at level 20 in January and continued as students progressed to level 24 to have a 79% students making or exceeding the benchmark. On the third page of what I have provided you tonight, you will see the interventions that are documented for each of these 3 grade levels, with the DRA data also bolded in those on that page. So we provide students at all these 3 grade levels and other grade levels with interventions such as tutorials, which is a one-on-one with a reading specialist, special educator, or a Title I teacher. We are very happy to be able to offer our students an intervention that is new this year in Portsmouth. At Dondero, we are piloting it called Leveled Literacy Intervention. It's a small group intervention that currently is being taught by a reading specialist, Title I teacher, resource teacher, and even our very own reading director, Joanne Simons, who comes and works with the kindergarten group. We also provide first grade students with reading recovery, which is an intensive daily one-on-one tutorial And we also provide coaching to teachers by the reading specialists so that that Tier 1 instruction that all students receive is targeted and will help those students meet their grade level benchmarks. The grade levels meet weekly to monitor student progress, as well as during our monthly PLC meetings. They're grade level teams that also would have the staff members who are providing the interventions. They attend those meetings. And yes, Dr. Shulman, we do have charts. They don't look quite like what they use at New Franklin, but it's all kept on Excel, all of these results from these different assessments. And it's much more than just a number. We can tell students' fluency, comprehension, their reading rate. And sometimes it's just one of those factors that's keeping a child from meeting the benchmark. And so we need to make sure that we intervene in that particular area. So as we continue through the school year, you'll notice that these interventions are all continuing. We've got a good pace. We've changed around some of the students in groups. We've changed some of the staff around to best pair students with staff strengths. And we're working really hard to make sure we get as close to our goal as we can. Next year, we look ahead and we think about the DRA scores that we have just begun to collect, end-of-year DRA scores with our 4th and 5th grade students, and looking at groupings now so that the beginning of September we can hit the ground running with intervention blocks and not wait until after we have a chance to assess the students again in the fall. We'll also be taking a look at our math next year, creating a school-wide math goal as well as a reading goal. And then if we're looking ahead for the other types of things going on at Dondero School, what's coming up, next weekend we have our Lawn Fete, our annual school-wide carnival, but also that day, something that's really special here at Dondero, is it will be our 2nd annual Scratch Day. Scratch is a programming language that our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students have been learning how to use under the direction of Linda George, our technology integrator. And on Saturday, the 22nd, students will participate with others around the world, creating and sharing their interactive stories, games, music, and art. And our talented students will be in the computer lab on that day from 10 to 2. That's May 22nd. Please feel free to come and see what they're up to. And their very talented teacher, Linda George, has been invited to be a presenter at the Scratch Conference at MIT this summer. So it's just amazing what our kids are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Tom.
Just a quick question back onto the reading on the PLC SMART goals. One of the things I'm always thinking about is, reading is really the foundation of so much learning in elementary school, and I see the goals are 90 in kindergarten, 100 in grade 1, and then it drops down to 80% in grade 2. Why the drop? Why not 100?
The 100% of all students reading was a goal that our superintendent has set for us at the end of 1st grade, and our other goals were established prior to that.
Okay.
And so we'll be looking at that for next year. Also, when you look at the 2nd grade, when they started out with 44% of the students reading, we wanted to set an achievable goal. And so at 80%, we felt confident we can get there, and I think we're going to.
Yeah.
Feel very confident.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have Ann, Rebecca, and then Lisa.
I just had a question about the 1st grade. Were you able to determine what percentage of your 1st graders had gone through your full-day kindergarten program the year before?
I don't have that percentage, but I know it's the majority of them.
It's the majority of kids.
Yeah.
And that should play into, if you have those kids in the building at full time, maybe those DRA scores will
Absolutely.
help you improve.
I think one of the things that I wrestle with when I look at the 1st and 2nd grade data is that boost that the students in 2nd grade made between September and January. And I have to wonder if some of our 1st graders just need extra time, and that, reading will take a little longer for them to come to. I guess in time we'll be able to figure that out. I also like to think it's the intervention that we put in place. but we've done that at first grade as well and haven't seen the same thing. So it could just be that they're young kids.
So my question is, so with the intervention in the kindergarten and in the first grade, do you expect to see further down the line that the second graders will already come in that much higher?
That's the goal, yes.
And so how long have you really been tracking these 3 grades? I mean, like, how many, we haven't been following these second graders for the last 2 years.
I have that data.
Okay.
I just didn't bring it with me.
No, but I'm curious, and that's fine. I'm just curious, like, does this year's second grade come in a little bit higher than last year's second grade because they've already had this intensive 2 years, with full day kindergarten, which is an excellent, I think, point for us to have.
I'm hoping that will be the case in the fall of 2010.
That we'll be able to see that they come in.
Yes.
Okay.
Because this is really our first full year with intervention blocks and such a planned and purposeful way of intervening with these children, and early on and repeatedly all year long.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve first.
I was just going to add, because some of the comments have been around the effect of full day kindergarten. We, as part of all of the work around looking at the DRA data, which is our only consistent reading assessment data at those early grade levels, we've seen quite an increase in the numbers of students reading at benchmark at that end of kindergarten year to over 90% district-wide now, whereas that's jumped up at least 10 percentage points each year. So it's been a great way of looking at the effect of full day kindergarten and as it relates to reading.
Validates it, yeah.
Yes.
And I was just going to comment that I think it'll be so fascinating to see these snapshots over time, and really you address some of it. Some of it is cognitive development of the kids, maybe between the ages of 7 and 8. That's just kind of where they are, but then they can jump up, and it's the level of cognitive demand of what, how the material changes too. So I think it'll just be fascinating to build, the picture over time.
I agree.
And see what trends are there that are due to the child and what are, due to interventions, and kind of flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I just wanted to start off with just some of the recent things that have been going on at Little Harbor, and I thought I would take this opportunity to highlight some individual achievements of a couple of our students. Andrew Rogers, a 4th grader who happens to be in Mrs. Brolette's class, actually, recently had a poem published in Stone Soup magazine, which is a very selective children's literature magazine. So that was a huge accomplishment. It's very competitive to have a piece published in there, so we're all very proud of that. And Annika Strand, who's also in the 4th grade, had her artwork selected for the Portsmouth Children's Day poster, and you may have seen it around town. It's of a child doing a cartwheel. It's a great illustration, so that's been kind of neat to see that around town, and I think that's something great for Annika and for Little Harbor. And then recently, actually the Friday before vacation, the 5th grade went to St. Anselm College, which is my alma mater. And every year there, what they do to celebrate Shakespeare's birthday is they have an event where anybody really kind of associated with the college, alumni, faculty, present students, can read all of Shakespeare's 154 sonnets from beginning to end over the course of the day. And it's much more exciting than it sounds. But actually, the kids had a fantastic time, and the adults who came with them had a fantastic time. I've taken a number of schools to this event, and so what happens is people sign up ahead of time to read sonnets, and so we were able to get 12 spaces, 12 sonnets for our Little Harbor students. We took the whole class. 12 kids signed up to read ahead of time, and they did a stellar job reading very, very difficult literature in front of a fairly good-sized group out in public outside. What was also wonderful is that we had a lot of students who volunteered on the spot, sight unseen, to get up and read sonnets that they had not seen until that very minute, when people who had signed up to read them originally hadn't shown up. And it was unbelievable. And I can't tell you the number of compliments I received from faculty at the school and from there's one older alumnus who actually underwrites some of this event. And he came over to me and told me how impressed he was with all of the kids. It was great. I was very proud. And then upcoming events, this Saturday, we have our bike rodeo, and this year, it's an event that we've had in the past, and it highlights bike safety, but this year we've also decided to use it as an opportunity to raise money and raise awareness for diabetes. We have some diabetic students in our school, and we've tried to do some education with certainly staff and to some degree students and parents around diabetes and how it impacts kids. And so that's going to be an added aspect to that event this Saturday. It's from 1 to 4. May 16th through May 28th, we have Nate Walker. Remember the big blue crab that was in Portsmouth? That was Nate Walker. And so he is going to be working primarily with our 4th grade, but with all of our students in creating trash art. And so he's brought some unbelievable work that he's created into the school just to kind of get the kids into it, get the kids excited. He brought in a dragon's head today that everybody was going crazy about. It's just amazing what he's able to create from trash. So we're all looking forward to that. And then on May 18th, we have a kindergarten orientation night, which typically we've had in the fall, but in talking with the kindergarten team this year, we realized that sort of kindergarten registration is people's first introduction to the school. And here, fill out this form, please. And so what we want to do is try to get the people into the community a little earlier, into the school community, and just kind of have them become familiar with some of the parents who are active in the school, and certainly the kindergarten teachers and some of the other folks around school. And so we tried to move that up. It's going to be a very relaxed sort of event, just to get the parents in and kind of get them into the fabric of the school a little bit sooner. And then finally, on May 25th, Andrew French, our art teacher, will be having an art exhibition for grades 4 and 5. That's something that he's done annually, I believe, for the past couple of years. So we're looking forward to that. Onto the PLC work. The first page that I'm going to go through quickly was a page that I think was in your packet. And what I had hoped to do tonight was to build on the presentation that I had made at the January meeting, my goal being to kind of give you a sense of what it's like for one individual team to kind of work toward their goal, really, in this case, not just from the beginning of this year, actually, but stretching back to last year. So if you remember, our grade 3 team last year had identified some of the power standards in their PLC work and tried to achieve mastery of the power standards in the area of mathematics. And then following up on that work this year, they had decided to target math fact fluency as a goal. And so they had identified that goal. And when we met in January, I had brought the most recent data that we had at that point, the December data, and it was somewhat inconclusive. So that while addition had gone from 21% in September up to 52% in December, the percentage of students fluent in subtraction had fluctuated from 16% in September to 36% in November, and then back down to 18% in December. And so there was certainly some head scratching at that point with the teachers about where to go from there. And so the team's work has continued on, and they've demonstrated a great deal of success. And just a few of the things that I've highlighted here. So kind of alongside of all the regular math work they would ordinarily be doing in everyday math, they also received consistent math fact fluency practice. The teachers sent a lot of materials home, including websites for practicing fact fluency at home and kind of enlisting the support of parents and reinforcing some of these skills. They have put charts up in the school posting the kinds of data that you'll see here and giving the kids the opportunity to read through the data and see where progress has been made and see where progress hasn't been made, and kind of give the students the opportunity to read data and kind of find a way forward from there. And one of the things that they've also done is they have experimented using oral demonstration of fact fluency rather than just written demonstration. And one of the things they're certainly looking to do last year is make sure that kids have that oral fluency down before they get to the written fluency. That's something they've come to realize just sort of developmentally is appropriate. And this year in particular, some of the kids who weren't able to meet some of the goals in writing are able to do it orally. So they still do have that knowledge. They've had some difficulty expressing that on paper. And as I highlighted down here, the goal was that 80% of third graders would score 90% or above in fluency by the end of third grade. And surprisingly, they had to do a lot of research to determine the most appropriate and effective ways to assess math fact fluency. And after a lot of research, they decided that to define it as the written recall of a fact within 3 seconds. And then I had given you in the board packet a few percentages here, but if you turn to another page with a chart that I had given you tonight that includes those percentages along with some others, and you can see that in addition fluency, they've met the goal as of April. In the times 0 and times 1, they certainly met the goal, and so on down the line. The two areas which did not quite meet the goal were in subtraction and the times 5, oddly enough. The one observation that I would make is, although they didn't quite meet their goal at this point in the year, they did make significant growth. If you notice, those are actually the two categories where, for whatever reason, the students started the lowest, with 16% in subtraction and 10% in the times 5 multiplication. So they still made very substantial growth in those areas, and the year's not over yet. And just a few things, aside from, I think, some of the obvious benefits that we have some students who have made tremendous growth in terms of being able to be fluent in their math facts. I think there's some other benefits of the PLC work this year, not just for students but for staff, that I just wanted to highlight. And so the first thing I wanted to observe is that teachers have increased their understanding of how to assess and teach fact fluency, which is a critical aspect of math understanding. If you can manipulate and work through your facts quickly, that builds a foundation that you can work off of for higher level types of work. And along with that building of understanding, rather than a one-year sort of professional development focus that might provide a temporary increase in student performance, the work the teachers have done this year, it's going to be built in next year. Regardless of what their PLC goal is next year, this is going to exist and move forward in their work. It's going to be integral to their efforts in the future. And then the grade 3 team, along with all of the other PLC teams in our school, they share this work with their colleagues in the school. And so already people have started to ask about the work they've done, whether it's actually the fact fluency work, or in some cases, I know at a staff meeting recently, people wanted to talk to them about how they collected the data and that kind of thing. So it's not just beneficial for this cohort of third grade students, it's not just beneficial for this team of teachers, but there's some capacity building, to use Mr. Zadravek's phrase, which kind of carries out into the rest of the staff, which is of a real benefit. And then looking forward to next year, this is data that the third grade team will be able to pass on to the fourth grade team. And so again, they're going to hit the ground running in this area, knowing where these kids are at. And by the same token, next year, the third grade team is going to have a real clear sense of how to start this work, both the assessment and the instruction, from the very beginning of the year. When we had collected that December data, they were still struggling and trying to make sense of it. They're still trying to define how to assess the data, still trying to define what fluency was. And that's out of the way now, and they'll be ready in September next year. And one, I think, really important piece here that they're especially proud of is that this instruction has been effective with regular education students and special education students. And so all the students are very sort of commensurate in terms of percentages of how many kids have been successful in regular ed or special ed. In fact, actually, I can think of a few identified students who have made the biggest growth this year, and so the team is very, very proud of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ann, yes, question.
Charlie, I was wondering if for the math facts fluency, if they used computers at all. I had a program that we used that was very successful.
Primarily, no. They did have some websites that provided activities for them to use, but by and large, it really wasn't. It was pencil and paper tasks and oral repetition of fact fluency, a lot of games in the classroom. One of the games that they use that comes to mind is you roll the dice, roll the dice and add 6 to whatever you roll. So it was a variety of that, and I think the games actually were pretty pivotal because, again, the kids are engaged, they're relaxed, and they're having fun with it. That might be a kind of a competitive aspect to it, which gets them a little fired up.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Charlie, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay. Moving on, actually moving backwards, we'll come back to the superintendent's report.
Yes, in your packet, board members received a copy of the New Hampshire Department of Education's application and memorandum of understanding as they apply, I think, for the second round of Federal Race to the Top initiative. I'm sure you know it's a very highly competitive process. The states are vying for these dollars. They're limited dollars. But what I wanted to, the reason I wanted to provide this with you is to give you some sense of the expectations the state has for districts should they successfully secure the funds. So that's why I shared, the 15 or 16 pages in the rubric that they have. For the most part, I think there's tremendous alignment between the initiative that the district has with what the state is proposing in its plan. For example, building a culture of reflective inquiry, using multiple assessment measures to determine where students are, implementing best instructional practice in the classroom. But there are two areas I think that generate a lot of concern, and I would share that with you. The first is implementing an educator evaluation system that really uses student achievement as a determining factor in whether teachers are retained or advanced. And the second one is piloting a teacher compensation system that is really based on the state's definition of an effective teacher. So that's, needless to say, generated some concern. And there's that typical tension between local control and the state putting out a plan. But nonetheless, I've been asked, and I think it's appropriate to sign on for the state's application here, because Paul Leather has talked in the area superintendents that really it's helping them in moving forward this application. We can still make a determination as to whether we go forward or not. And so there are 3 signatures that are required, one from the superintendent, one from the board chair, and there's an opportunity for the union to sign on as well. And we've not had that conversation yet, but we'll ask. And I think in any case, they certainly want to see superintendents sign on so they can submit their application. So that's one piece in your packet. You have a copy of the April board administrator, a copy of the meeting dates for next year's school board meetings. Question?
Question. On the meeting dates, would it be possible to move the middle school meeting to during the school year?
During the school year. Yeah, it's by it's the 2nd and 4th. Mm-hmm. You're going to find that again this year on the 22nd. School will be out, and that's when your meeting will occur. If you want to move it up to the 3rd and make an exception, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if we're meeting in the schools to meet in the school, it should at least be during the school year.
Your motion was 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. I'm happy to move it if that's what the board wishes to have happen. That makes sense.
Well, my sense would be, if it's not too difficult, it would be a good idea to have it during the school, only because one of the things that we talked about when we had this conversation was that we were going to try to actually work with the PTO in the building to see if we can have it on the same night and ask them to schedule their meeting, so we'd have some overlap. So really, it would make sense.
Make it the 21st
of what?
June.
Would it be possible to move the location but not change a date? So, for instance, December 14th or something like that?
Well, rather than, why don't we go back, talk to the superintendent
school year.
and have it worked out so it goes during the school year.
Yeah. I just find moving dates can sometimes be a little...
Okay.
Okay.
Moving forward, you have notice of 2 upcoming field trips, the Outing Club, which is a 2-day trip, and Little Harbor's E-trip visit. And there's a question from Ms. Emerson.
I have another question. Could you update the superintendent information on the bottom of the form?
Bob was to,
Yes.
Give him a new form.
Are
you trying to tell us something?
It's fine.
and Little Harbor as well.
Yes.
And
No problem.
what grade is this first trip pertaining to?
The Little Harbor trip?
No, the outing?
Yeah, it's high school students.
High school.
It's high school, okay.
Yes. Oh, yes.
There's not a line for what school
They went
or
out,
what
you might
grade.
recall, they went on a trip a little bit earlier this year where they did some snowshoeing and spent 2 days. It was
Right.
largely the field
I think
hockey
it's
girls.
mixed.
The same advisors are taking a group of no more than 12 out for a 2-day excursion.
Thank you.
Moving on. Mr. Bartlett is attending the Tri-State Business Administrators Conference this evening, so he's not here. He did provide you a copy of his financial report. I think the Reader's Digest version is that there's another month has passed and there's little, if any, change from what he reported a month ago.
That's good news.
Those key factors where there are large variances remain, but we're tracking on target as a result of the soft freeze in terms of discretionary spending, so that's good news. Also in your packet, you have letters that have been sent between the New Hampshire Interscholastic Athletic Administration and Portsmouth High School that really address the hockey incident. Again, the short version is the hockey program has been censured rather than put on probation. Probation would mean that students could play, but they couldn't be eligible for postseason participation next year. So the good news is they've just been censured. And largely, I think, because Principal Collins and Athletic Director Wilson were very proactive in how they addressed the situation and put, I think, disciplinary measures or growth measures in place for the students. He did also meet with the Arts and Athletic Subcommittee, and he has a recommendation where he would essentially like to see, should future events happen like this, to basically have sportsmanship and citizenship, kind of those egregious events, kind of be handled under the disciplinary code and council that addresses typically those other violations of the athletic code. If Joe were still here, I'd like to acknowledge in your package you have Ms. LeMay's letter of resignation. I know the school board joins me in thanking Ms. LeMay for her 9 years of dedication here to the district and wish her well as she takes on new opportunities in her future. We'll invite her as well as the retiring staff to a reception on the 25th, which will be actually held at the Portsmouth Middle School on the 25th. And I would also share that yesterday was the closing date for applications for the principalship at the Dondero Elementary School. Mr. Zadrovic is heading up a committee of 12 folks who will screen and do the interviews. And I think there were 41 applicants for the position. So we're hopeful it's kind of an accelerated timeline where interviews will happen a week from now, and then second rounds of interviews, and hopefully we'll bring you a candidate in June, early June.
Great. Wow, excellent.
And I believe that's it.
Yes.
On the invitation for the retirement, it says it's here.
Okay, did we change the date? We changed the date of the...
Wait, just the location.
Location. May 25th, but it says it's here.
So that was going on today. I think we were trying to make sure that we could have the event televised. I know that we're doing the phasing piece with the school committee. So I'm sure Amy's right. It got changed. I'm sure it's here. The invitation says it, and we'll do the whole...
So the meeting's here?
Yeah, and I'll let Chad Weathers know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Let me write that in my book. So, any quick questions? Okay. So let's see. Moving on to new business. So we have the first reading of some new policies.
Yes.
Who's from the policy? Yes.
Oh, I have a question. This is just a reading, and will we
The
discuss
first
each
reading.
one separately?
If you have some things you'd like to talk about, but it's really just a quick first reading of it.
Okay.
So, yes.
And these are in the same as the other policies that we've been approving where they're
Required.
required.
Exactly.
Before you, I would like to actually ask, because I'm a little unclear, because we're adding new policies, some that are required that we haven't had, and some that are being revised that we have had. So I would like to suggest to the policy committee that anytime we get a policy that is an update of an earlier one, because a couple of years ago, we used to actually get a copy of the old policy along with a copy of the new to be able to compare, to see if there's any changes that just stand out to us. So are these all new policies, or some of these are old? Like, I remember seeing a policy once on awards for achievement, and so I guess that's really my question for this. It would be helpful to have that, to know. So, okay. Yes, Rebecca.
I had a question on the graduation requirements. That I believe I heard Mr. Collins tell us that we have higher standards than the state. And I was just wondering what the state requirements are versus what ours, or versus other schools, just to see where we are. So I guess it doesn't really have to do with, well, I guess it does have to do with the policy. I mean, if we are asking a lot more than.
I do remember that conversation, and I know we have 26, but I think the state requires less than 26 credits.
I think it's 20.
Might be 20 credits. Yeah, that's what I remember.
And so I think that would be interesting, and then, you know, thinking about in future budget years. I think that information is something that we need to have.
The information, what do you mean?
The information that.
You just want to know the number the state requires.
I just want to know what the state requires and what are they, like, do they require 4 credits in English or do they only require 2 or so I would find that information to be very helpful.
We can get that for you. That's easily
Okay.
done.
Yeah. I would just point out as well, you know, it was interesting because I'm not there yet. Next year is the year I really start looking at colleges for my daughter. But my wife can't help herself, and she's starting early. And so one of the things that she really recognized was that many colleges, many private colleges actually are looking for students who have 4 years of English and 4 years of math.
Oh, yeah.
Not 3 years of math. And we have 3 years of science and social studies. So just a point. Yes.
I was just going to clarify with the state requirements. They would be, the difference would be in the number of elective credits. That is to say, all of the other requirements you see here are also state requirements.
Okay, and I think that the college requirements, it would be excellent information to have too. Like, should we have should we have 4 credits in mathematics instead of just 3? I think we need more information on that. I feel.
For the next reading.
For the next reading.
Would be helpful. And also point out that some of these are, for example, the computer course. We still have a half-credit requirement for graduation of a computer course, and you know many students fulfill that requirement by the time they graduate 8th grade. But there are students who don't, and so they end up having to take a computer course in high school just to graduate. So, yes.
At one time, under social studies, geography was required at the high school. Is it any longer, or is it just strictly an elective? Do we know?
I don't know off the top of my head, Ann.
Do you know, Steve?
In terms of
At one point at the high school, every student was required, you know, you're required to take gym your freshman year, and you're required to take geography. Is that just an elective now?
I think it is still the case.
I think it is a
So it's no
requirement.
longer required?
No, it is still required.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Freshman year,
yeah.
Through it. So when it says or geography, it just means, should say and.
Yeah.
Yes, Ann.
Since we were just going over these graduation requirements, maybe I could ask the policy committee if you've had guidance take a look at this to make sure and verify that should be an and versus an or, because they would know specifically the state mandate and whether or not this, just run it by them first. I know I've talked to Leslie about this, so I figured maybe that already happened, but it seems like a good idea. And I think all of these policies, I don't have my list in front of me, but except the IKG, I think these are all mandated policies.
Anyone else? So I know in the past we used to, and I won't comment on the little grammatical left out words here and there in the writing of the policy. Those will be fixed up the next time. Yeah. Like is and thes are all left out many places. Must have been written by a lawyer.
It was.
Oh, sorry. No offense.
It's state.
Okay. So any other comments or questions about this set of policies here on the first reading? So should we take a vote on the first reading?
I don't think that's necessary.
You don't think that's necessary? Okay. Very good. So we'll move on to committee updates then. Policy committee? Anything different? It's kind of a funny thing.
Same old.
Okay.
I think we're just continuing to work on the required policies to get through those before we move on to something.
Right.
And get them online.
So is there a sense of how far along we are?
More than
How-
halfway.
More than halfway?
Yep.
And how often do you guys meet?
Every 2 or 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks, I think.
Okay.
I think so.
And do you need help?
Well, yes. Would you like to help? I mean, I think we're moving along pretty quickly, truthfully.
too.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
well, I mean, I don't, what do other people think? I think we're,
We really have to run things by Kathleen in terms of the legal stuff.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I feel like we're plowing through it.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Middle School Joint Building Committee.
So I'll give you a quick update. We had a very successful public information session at the end of April, and the feedback we received from attendees, public attendees of that meeting was nothing but positive, and that was encouraging. We also formally reached agreement with our construction manager at risk, Gil Bain. So now we have a contract with them, and they are on board. We also have selected our clerk of the works, Dan Hartree, who, whoever was listening to the city council meeting last night, City Manager Bohenko described a process where he'll work for the city half-time and for the project half-time in fiscal year 2011, and beginning in July of 2011, he will join this project full-time. And that's terrific for us and for the city. And the last thing, I'll just repeat what I mentioned before, is that at the next Joint Building Committee meeting on May 19th, one of the things that the committee will hear is the phasing proposal for construction phasing and the impact that will have on the students in the program. And so we strongly encourage everybody from this board to attend that May 19th meeting. It begins at 6:30 in the Levinson Room at the Public Library. The JBC will take up other matters as well, but most germane to this group will be that phasing plan. The hope is that on the 19th that the Joint Building Committee will recommend a particular approach. We'll see, I think, several options, but we will, I expect, will select a recommendation, and then that will be presented to this board at our May 25th meeting. Our construction manager, our project manager, Chad Weathers from Gilbane, will attend this meeting. He will present the information to us and be available for questions. And what we will ask is that this board consider voting to approve the recommended plan, with the understanding is that it is this board's responsibility and authority to do so.
Right.
And I don't think I have anything else to say unless there are questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Levinson Room.
Levinson Room, 6:30, May 19th.
There are none. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just provide a brief update on the Facilities Committee.
Absolutely.
I'll just give a couple highlights that I think are worth mentioning. One, we spent some time this morning talking about the fields that are going to be put in. We've got the field at the high school as well as the Wentworth field, and that is on track. We are going to start work. It's going to commence on June 7th, where the contractor is actually going to build a bridge, and so the track will actually be shut down for both youth and adult recreation, and so there's going to be a number of postings that will be out there, but they're going to have to actually build a bridge over the existing rubberized track to protect it. So they will be able to bring in heavy equipment as well as trucks. One of the things that we did learn is through this process they're going to take out just over 4,000 yards of earth, and a lot of that is really good quality. They're going to do a pretty good, they've done a number of soil samples that they're waiting to get back, but most of that earth will be repurposed and reused over at the Wentworth field.
Tom, it's officially the Granite Street softball field.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That is the
It's
the
not
name.
alumni?
No, well,
no longer
we're referring to it, the Joint Building Committee, as the Granite Street
So we'll
softball
strike
field.
Wentworth from the notes. And,
So, please. Just so there's no confusion.
Granite Street. Check.
People will think you're building a third field.
That's right. Well, yeah, exactly. No, I appreciate that. So the good thing is that there are a number of things that we're going to do from an exploratory standpoint. That when the hood is open and we've got the motor out, we're going to take a look at the conduit for all the lights. We're going to take a look at the drainage as well as some irrigation, so that even though we know there are some other future projects that might be in the works, we're going to make sure that the infrastructure while the floor is lifted, to make sure that those pieces are adequately prepared, so that when lighting other facilities around the track might be rehabilitated, we'll have that infrastructure in place and will not have to do any additional work. Bleachers are going to still be replaced, and we're hoping that we'll have those on track, knowing full well that we've got ADA compliant. We're going to be doing a similar size for the home field, depending on costs and money that we do have. The visitor field might be slightly reduced, but that's something that we're going to find out as the project progresses. One other thing that I thought was really good that we're moving forward, Kenny talked about the fact that the healthy initiative for the schools, there's been a lot of inquiry from parents, as well as there's also an ongoing request from many teachers to bring in cleaning supplies and things of that nature into the schools. And so there is going to be a Train the Trainer day coming up in the next week, in which we're going to have the custodial staff, we're going to have teachers, we're going to have some parents. It's going to be a real joint effort where we're going to do a Train the Trainer. We're going to have a consultant that is being paid for and brought in by the state, who is going to really educate that team on green cleaning products, processes, and will come forth with a recommendation on the products to use, the methods and procedures, which I think is really a great thing that we're going to be able to do. I think one of the things that, from a policy standpoint, we'll have an opportunity to take a look at. There will be a number of groups that we can take a look at. One, we have some compliance in terms of how we clean schools that we need to manage. We have a policy component where we can take a look at what we want to have brought into the schools. So we're going to have an opportunity to craft some language in a policy about the type of health and cleaning guidelines that we will have in the schools, and so that'll be something that we'll develop over the summer, and we'll probably have something in the beginning of the fall to speak about in a little bit more details. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, there is going to be a high school workday to take a look at the entryway to the high school. It's going to be on June 5th. And the senior class has raised this money, and it's going to be taking some sponsorship from some of the local landscaping to help really improve the entire entryway. There's about $15,000 that the senior class raised for this, and it's going to be a really a neat project just to see this beautification. There's going to be a walkway. There's going to be a gigantic granite sign that will welcome people to the entrance of the high school, and so there's going to be a lot of people that are participating on it, and they're hoping it's going to be ready for June 9th. Oh, yes, thank you. There's also a sign at the entrance to Andrew Varkas Drive that is going to be replaced. The last time it was, I guess, first put there was many, many years ago, and it's a little long in the tooth, so they're going to have that replaced and refreshed, which will be a nice addition.
Very nice.
All right.
Yes, Liv.
The bleachers that are being replaced are the ones outside?
That's correct.
Because we're also replacing the ones inside it, no?
Not as part of the capital improvement.
No, I know that, but the ones inside in the gym at the high school were being replaced because they were not working. Am I right? Wasn't that part of the city's capital improvement?
I think it's the outside bleachers.
Outside ones.
Yeah. The capital improvement is, from what I understand, is just
outside.
focused on just the outside, though there might be some issue with the inside bleachers.
I've heard that.
And the field work is a part of the middle school project, but the bleacher work is not a part of the middle school project, but they will be going on
Simultaneous,
concurrently.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the bleachers is part of the CIP.
Right.
The field is part of the middle school, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Just to kind of reiterate the whole senior class gift, it is an immense project, and we're really proud of the work that we've been able to pull off these last 4 years and kind of bring this all together at this point. And it's really not just a class gift to the school, it's a gift to the whole community. That's really what the whole brick walkway is about. It's about your legacy. It's about your memories. And so on behalf of the senior class, I want to thank you for your support. And if you have nothing else to do on June 5th, we'd really like you to get down there, roll up your sleeves and help, lay some bricks and plant some trees and all that other fun, yard work that you do on a regular basis. But it definitely has been a great, gratifying project just to bring it all together and to really encompass the whole school and community. And we're really proud of the work that has gone into it and the results that will ultimately come from it at the end.
Great. Thank you. So, just a reminder, our next meeting's the 25th. If you have any agenda items you'd like, forward them to the superintendent. And if nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?